Cells lesson, Station Rotation by Aaron Ellis. In this created lesson, we used a blended learning environment or a station rotation model to teach students about cells and their parts. It was covered under Standard 5-2 and Indicator 5-2.1, where students had to recall the cell as the smallest unit of life and identify its major structures, which included the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus, and the vacuole. The ISTE Standard 3 was covered. Students had to use research and information fluency. In order to do this, they had to plan strategies to guide inquiry. Students used small group lesson materials in order to guide their research and to create a letter. They also needed to evaluate the different types of media that they had and the sources. Finally, they needed to select the information and sources and use it with a digital tool that we chose, such as Google Drawing, in order to create a letter from the point of view of a cell and label its parts. The next ISTE standard covered was Standard 1, Creativity and Innovation. The students needed to demonstrate creative thinking. They were very creative when they thought about how they wanted to place the different parts of a cell when creating an edible cell. In addition, they had to take their own picture of a cell from whichever point of view they chose, and then they had to label it. So they used models to explore the complexity of a single cell. The rationale behind this instructional design was that our classroom has been using Google tools such as Google Classroom for this year. While using Google Classroom as our main classroom management system, they've learned how to upload their work and turn in assignments. Therefore, this is why we decided to turn in the students' work, and they used Google Drawing and attached it. In addition, we've used Skitch in a small group setting, so students already had some schema and were previously exposed to how to use this different type of application on an iPad. They could also help and collaborate with each other if they got stuck and were unsure how to do something. This allowed them to revisit this wonderful app and also to collaborate with their peers as needed. This was very significant because our students were not only using technology, but they were creating a three-dimensional model and using technology to record the parts of the model. Students had to gather information from a variety of sources, from a previous small group lesson, from notes in a foldable in their science journals, as well as from an application called iCell on their iPads. So they had lots of resources to use when creating their three-dimensional model and labeling its parts. It was also significant that we connected our writing standards to our science standards. Allowing the students to write as if they were a parent cell and teaching their young cell about its parts and the functions of the organelles was really important for creativity. Students were also able to use their research that they had previously done when creating an edible cell and when working in a small group led direct instruction by their teacher to create a foldable. In addition, students also could refer back to an article that they had, an iCell application that they had, and they also had a Padlet that they had created about cells. Throughout the lesson, the students were actively engaged in technology as well as eating, and they had created their own works of art. It's an art when you can take a picture and you can truly share it with your peers. The students were definitely engaged and collaborated when needed. I saw a very big increase in the knowledge of cells. Prior to the lesson, not one student knew any parts of a cell, and after the lesson, the students could tell me about all 4 major parts under the South Carolina standards and what each cell's parts functions were. This lesson was highly engaging and worked very well in our classroom.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to break into what's called a station rotation. You guys do this in reading and you do it in math. The same thing as being in a small group. Some of your groups are going to be working on creating an edible cell and identifying each part of that edible cell, including the cytoplasm, the nucleus, the cell membrane, and the vacuole. You're going to be using edible objects to do this, and that is why it's called an edible cell. because at the end of the entire technology lesson, you'll be allowed to eat it. All right. Here's where we're going to begin. Raise your hand if you're group 1. Keep them up. Raise your hand if you're group 3. Raise your hand if you're group 5. You 3 groups are going to be the first groups to make an edible cell. So your groups are going to come. No, you can stay in your seats. You're going to sit in your seats, and I'm going to explain the process, and I'm going to give you the stuff you need. Raise your hands if you're group 2 and group 4. Decide you're part of group 2. Your group's going to work right now on getting into the Google Classroom and working on your arm and your Padle. Thumbs up. We are going to switch. We are going to switch groups at 8:50. So when that big hand is on the 10, we're going to be switching groups. Understand that? Take a minute and talk with the people at your group. What do you think the Jello is? And what do you think the outside of the Jello is? Take a minute and your group. What do you think the Jello is? And what do you think the plastic outside is? Samuel, the vacuole, okay. So what's going to happen right now is you're going to open the lid. You're going to open the lid of your Jello, and you're going to carefully put your vacuole and your nucleus inside of it where you can still see it, because you're going to need to take a picture of the top. When you're in Skitch, give me a thumbs up when you're taking your picture. Again, I'm in Skitch. I'm going to go to my camera. I'm going to allow it. And then I'm going to go and take a picture of my edible cell. Where's my edible cell? All right, thumbs up when you have a picture. Thumbs up when you have a picture. All right, the next step is, you see that arrow where it says add text? You hit the plus sign, and you're going to add text. You're going to label the nucleus, wherever the nucleus is, and you're going to drag it over and make sure you're pointing to it. You can turn the arrows if you grab them. So you're going to label your nucleus, and you're going to have to spell it correctly, unlike Miss Ellis. And if you make a mistake, you double click and you go back. You're going to label your nucleus. Once you're done with that, you're going to add another arrow and another text. Well, how do you do that, Miss Ellis? What do you think we should hit to add another arrow and more text? What do you think we should hit? What? Hit more tools right up at the top. This will bring up your text box as well as your arrows.
We have 2 stations, but everybody's going to do the first station, and upon completing the second station, okay, then you'll turn the second station in. The first station is going to be where you go to your Google Classroom, and we're going to use a new program called Google Drawing. What's the name of the program, everybody?
Google Drawing.
The objective of today's lesson is to be able to identify what the 4 major parts of a cell does, and then all right, so we got to label all of our parts, okay? And then you got to tell me what a cell is, and you're good, okay? You can use your article from yesterday too. What is a cell? Okay? Write down what a cell is. And thank you for not capitalizing those, because they're not proper nouns, okay? Good job. Marius, make sure your name is a proper noun, and make sure you have your last name too, please, and thank you. As you can tell, the students were highly engaged and were really working hard. They worked hard to use their resources and to refer back to them as needed. In all, there were truthfully 4 stations. The students had an article to read and code and were provided audio support if they needed it. The students were also provided with a cell foldable that they had made previously. In addition, when they were making their edible cells, the other half of the class was working on an article to read and code the text and answer questions, and they had a Padlet that they could answer a discussion question if they had finished it early. This allowed for my students that are fast finishers to still have something engaging to do and to be able to collaborate. Some of my students who needed extra support had me as a resource. I would go to each small group as needed, and I would provide help. Sometimes it was as simple as pointing them in the right direction as to how to complete their Google drawing or which reference to refer back to. In all, the students created a wonderful letter that is displayed within our hallways. They wrote a letter, and it's connected our writing as well as our science standards. This also allowed them to be creative and to use a new Google Drawing tool that we hadn't used previously. The students were also creative when they created their own edible cell and took a picture of it, and they labeled and identified each of the 4 parts. This is what led up to them being able to understand and identifying the function of each part of the cell that is required by the South Carolina Standard 5-2. The students were highly delighted to be able to create this as well as eat it when they were finished. Not to mention, I was highly happy that my students were actively engaged and using technology to help them learn and work independently after I introduced the station rotations for our South Carolina Cell standards.